Does the government work for us or do we work for the government? Can believers in limited government unite against the chosen candidate of the Republican establishment? Today, the tides of change are stronger than they've been in a generation.
How come it's different now than 4 years ago? Well, the country is different and the world is different, and they're starting to wake up and they're starting to realize
the establishment is doing anything it takes to stem those tides.
You know, it's pretty amazing how sometimes if you're in second place, they talk about the first and the third place.
All right, now, you got to tell me what you think of this headline. Poll: Romney leads New Hampshire. Huntsman third, Perry fourth. Now, do they know how to count? Why would they omit saying who was in second?
Well, you know why? Ron Paul.
But is there a media bias against him? Just from the media's point of view, isn't he good for the media because he challenges Republican orthodoxy and causes debate and generates and stimulates the discussion about ideas that the other Republicans don't want to talk about?
Well, that's right. And it's because the other Republicans don't want to talk about it. It's because he is such an extraordinary candidate that the mainstream media doesn't pay attention. They don't believe that Ron Paul, with his libertarian bent, could actually be the GOP nominee. To the contrary, every time Ron Paul comes out, attracts huge crowds, gets numbers that are sufficient in the polls to say this could be your Republican nominee, there's a base of Republicans, but especially the mainstream media, that refuse to acknowledge. It's like he's standing in front of them and they say, I don't believe it. Don't believe it, not credible. I'm going to rub my eyes and see if I can. Oh, he's still there? Yeah, but who's first, who's third?
They went down the number of times they mentioned the other three candidates in the review of the debate. And it was, you know, like 80, 90 times, depending on which it was. I was mentioned one time in all the discussion of the debate after it was over. Right. Now, but it deserved more than one mention on all the stations. Somebody went and added these all up.
Thank you,
so what's going on here? You're in this media business. I'd like to know exactly how that comes about.
And if you bet Ron Paul and the over was 90 seconds of speaking time, would you lose that bet? What the hell is going on?
It's pretty amazing. I mean, you sort of assumed maybe some of this was happening because I think like 90 seconds was about the amount of time that the Ron Paul camp had to respond also and talk. There's not a lot of time for these guys.
He polls very well. He usually wins, you know, most of the straw polls, or he's very high on the straw polls. So what gives here? He only spoke for 89 seconds.
You know, I'm not really sure what's to give, actually, why he hasn't had an opportunity to really speak during these debates more than he has. You're right. He's shown to be really in touch with the voters. They seem to really like some of his views, and it shows whenever the straw polls are being held. The electorate is undecided. We should all get the same number of questions.
Congressman, I'll bring in on this one. Let's take a question now from social media. Question. Before we move on, you want in on this issue? They want you in on this issue. Would you like in on this issue?
But John, once again, it's a medical subject, and I'm a doctor, you know.
I mean, what do you think about the media overlooking you? Last night's debate was so obvious. Here we are talking about the abortion debate, and they don't go to the baby doctor?
What's kind of been the consensus for the first hour of the debate?
This is really interesting, Harris, to look at because we've been looking at all the candidates. We're going to drill down on three. First of all, let us tell our folks who are watching us on the internet tonight that Ron Paul has been above the line for the entire night. People believe that Ron Paul is giving good answers to all the questions he has asked. But let's take a look at this because this is very interesting. We've got the green line here for Newt Gingrich, a white line for Rick Santorum, and an orange line for Mitt Romney.
We have a top tier. It is Mitt Romney, Rick Perry, and Michelle Bachmann.
We have a new top tier, and it's Perry, Mitt Romney, and Bachmann.
There's now a top tier in this race, at least for now, of Romney, Perry, and Bachmann.
I mean, I think that's fair to say.
Really fair to say? You're not forgetting, I don't know, anyone, say an ideologically consistent 12-term congressman who came within less than 200 votes of winning the straw poll? Isn't anyone going to give that gentleman a little love?
And, you know, we haven't mentioned, and we should,
thank you,
Rick Santorum, who did really surprisingly well for the amount of money and resources he had.
Rick Santorum, he didn't get half of what Ron Paul got. He lost to the guy who lost so bad he dropped out of the race. Santorum?
We're looking at Mitt Romney, who continues to be the front runner, but we have Rick Perry as well, and now Michelle Bachmann. Let's not count out John Huntsman, though.
What? John Huntsman? Huntsman got 69 votes.
So, John, you caused a fury in my world. I have a bone to pick with you. You left off Ron Paul, and people are waiting outside, and they're taking my donuts away. Can I stop you right there? Because, I mean, I'm getting real-time feedback. Ron Paul didn't just do well, he did the best from that chart. No, I just want to be fair. I want to point it out because people are watching for it.
How did Ron Paul do so well in New Hampshire yesterday?
Well, he's broadening his base of independents. First, though, that was the worst case of media bias I have seen. He's been the victim 6 or 7 times of terrible media bias. This was the worst, 25%, almost 25, I think 24.8%. Stellar performance. Media downplayed it.
About bias today in reporting the results, bias during the campaign?
Well, throughout, both. But bias today mainly in reporting the results today. I think it was the worst single incident of media bias against Ron Paul all year long, and there have been some very, very bad ones.
Because Ron Paul is campaigning on substantive change and profound reform, the establishment says he can't win.
Another question about electability. Do you have any, sir? There's always the question as to whether or not you are in fact viable. Your differences with the Republicans, with the rest of the Republicans on this stage, has raised questions about whether or not you can actually win the Republican general, sir.
Well, we've only had 2 little primaries so far, so it's pretty premature to decide which. But, you know, when you think about it, if you measured everything I've ever said, every vote I've ever taken against the Constitution, you know, I'm a strict constitutionalist. Are you suggesting the Republicans should write me off because I'm a strict constitutionalist? I'm the most conservative member here. I have voted more spending and waste in government than anybody else. So you're suggesting that I'm not electable and the Republicans don't want me because I'm a strict fiscal conservative? Because I believe in civil liberties? Why should we not be defending civil liberties? And why should we not be talking about foreign policy that used to be the part of the Republican? And you're saying now that we have to continue to borrow money from China to finance this empire that we can't afford? Let me see if I get this right. We need to borrow $10 billion from China and then to Musharraf, who's a military dictator who overthrew an elected government, and then we go to war, we lose all these lives promoting democracy in Iraq. I mean, what's going on here? And you're saying that this isn't appealing to Republicans? Where did this come about?
Ron Paul has been campaigning after posting strong finishes in Iowa and New Hampshire.
It is time to dispense with the tired nonsense that Ron Paul is unelectable. The same was said of another older guy from the West named Ron. Polls show that in a head-to-head matchup with President Obama, only Mitt Romney and Ron Paul are within the margin of error. After Iowa and New Hampshire, the 2 GOP candidates that have garnered the most votes are Mitt Romney and Ron Paul. Make no mistake, Congressman Ron Paul did very well in last night's New Hampshire primary, winning 23% of the vote rather than the 17% that pollsters had predicted. This firmly establishes Paul's position in a two-way race with Governor Mitt Romney for the GOP nomination.
Got Ben Affleck here. They're screaming for Ron Paul.
Having campaigned during the last presidential election, you had the most enthusiastic supporters of anybody I ever saw.